Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story, China's Are You Dead app has gone viral, and it's mostly attracting the country's youth. And now under mounting pressure, the developer's once firm stance on the controversial name is starting to crack. Unrest's breaking out in central China following a 13-year-old student's mysterious death on school grounds. Chinese protesters are demanding an answer to what they deem a government cover-up. President Trump urging Iranian protesters to keep going, saying help is on the way. He's also slapped 25% tariffs on countries doing business with Iran. Will the policy impact Iran's top trading partner, China? An expert breaks it down. Questions over Chinese military might after reports of China-made radars failing in Venezuela during the U.S. operation. A former U.S. defense official joins us to unpack the implications. A former U.S. Navy sailor has been sentenced to nearly 17 years for spying for China. How it developed from seemingly harmless actions to selling thousands of sensitive documents about U.S. Navy ships. A morbidly named app has climbed to the top of China's App Store, becoming the #1 paid download. It's called Are You Dead? The app is designed to help people living alone by making sure someone checks in on them every single day. And as more Chinese citizens choose to live by themselves, the app is growing in popularity. Host of China Insider David Zhang gives his insight. Watch.
The current Chinese society is very interesting. You see many cases even around you. You have a Chinese couple, they might often be on their phones rather than engaging with each other in real social settings. So this internet culture of things in China is quite prominent. And in fact, a lot of people have grown to be so closed off after COVID, especially, that they'd rather engage through internet apps and whatnot. So checking in for them may not be a phone call, but it could actually be a click of a button. The app also serves an alternative purpose. Actually, if you think about it, there's a lot of talks of young people gone missing in China, that they've been harvested for their organs randomly, and even disappearing. So this app can also serve in the benefits of that to track your loved ones and their whereabouts, which is actually something very serious right now.
The app, known internationally as deem, lets users tap a large check-in button once a day to confirm they're okay. However, if they don't check in for 2 straight days, the app automatically sends a message to a registered emergency contact, urging them to check on the user. The app, released in May last year under the Chinese name Silima, meaning Are You Dead? It costs just $1 and has quickly gone viral. Its rise in popularity reflects a broader social shift in China. More young people are choosing to stay single, marry later, or live alone. Meanwhile, a growing number of elderly are living without nearby family support. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, single-person households in China made up nearly 20% of all homes in 2024. That's up from less than 8% 2 decades ago. Chinese state-run media estimates there could be around 200 million one-person households by 2030. Developers say they plan to expand the app's features to serve the elderly. They're a key demographic given that more than 20% of China's population is already over the age of 60. While many commentators have praised the app's purpose, others criticized its name, especially the reference to death. There have been reports suggesting the company will change the app's name in China following pushback. The app's growing popularity highlights a loneliness epidemic across China, one that continues to deepen. Mass protests against social injustice has erupted in central China. It follows the sudden death of a 13-year-old student at his school last week. The school attempted to get rid of the body secretly without letting the parents see it at all. Now, the parents are reportedly being silenced by local authorities. The move quickly sparked heavy criticism and suspicion around the case as many people took to the streets. What are they demanding from authorities, and why are they calling the incident a cover-up of crimes threatening people's safety in China? NTD's Flora Hua has the story. And a warning, this report contains footage some viewers may find disturbing.
Media reports and videos show the school tried to transfer the student's body away with an ambulance right after he died. A truck reportedly drove by the student's uncle, who stopped the ambulance, urging it not to leave before his parents see the body. When the student's parents arrived, they saw blood on the corner of their child's mouth. and there was a nail-sized hole on his left chest, appearing to be a needle hole. Yet no one from the school could explain.
要看看俺小孩给在学校里不明不白的就这样没有了，学校也不给俺们一个说法，不知道小孩是咋样没有的。到现在为止，学校也不出来一个人给俺一个说法，让俺们一直在这等。
The parents said they weren't aware of anything unusual regarding their child's health. The school reportedly failed to provide further information and refused to hand over CCTV footage, claiming the surveillance camera was broken. The lack of transparency drove many people to demonstrate in front of the school, including other students' parents. They're heard demanding an independent investigation on the boy's death. The protests continued all throughout the day. Videos show special police forces were deployed there to suppress the unrests. Concerns over whether the boy was targeted for his organs are rising on the internet. Now, information circulating online suggests the student's family may have been oppressed. Meanwhile, the parents have remained silent for days. Flora Hua, NTD News.
This is not an isolated case. Last September, a high schooler in China's city of Tianjin was announced dead in a hospital where he was getting treatment. His family discovered that his liver was taken, with other organs reportedly being stabbed. He reportedly fell out of a school building from the second floor, and the school's nurse confirmed that his bones were fractured. President Trump has imposed a 25% tariff on countries doing business with Iran, effective immediately. With China being Iran's largest trading partner, will the new policy impact the U.S.'s trade truce with China? Here's the story.
Greg Copley, president of the International Strategic Studies Association, told NTD that he doesn't think the 25% tariff will affect the U.S.-China trade truce.
I think it's a more or less meaningless statement and imposition of tariffs and so on. It might have some short-term hiccups for the countries concerned, but basically it's a statement of intent. It's, if you like, Mr. Trump's wolf warrior diplomacy at play here. He is letting people know he's serious. He's going to throw assets at this problem.
Trump held a briefing with his national security team on Tuesday to discuss possible actions against the Iranian regime. Copley believes there could be military action down the road.
President Trump likes to be known for his follow-up and to make sure that people understand that he's serious, as he did with Venezuela, as he did with Nigeria, even though there were token military operations.
Copley noted Iran's ruling clerics might attempt one more missile assault on Israel.
And the Israelis are preparing for this. Their air defense and space defense systems are in order and ready. But if Iran does that, fires its last salvo, if you like, of available ballistic missiles at Israel, then that gives Israel and the United States open leave to go and attack Iranian military assets.
As Iran faces one of the biggest challenges to its rule, China offered little public support, except for saying that Beijing hopes Iran and its people will overcome the current difficulties and maintain national stability. In a similar vein, Beijing did not offer any significant support to Venezuela in the lead-up to Maduro's capture. Chinese radars also failed Venezuela's air defense system, a question now hanging in the air. Does China's allies such as Russia, Iran, and North Korea still have confidence in Beijing?
I think that's already been shaken. The new axis of evil are, in fact, fairly preoccupied with their own problems. The only one, any partnership within that is the Russia-North Korea alliance, which remains fairly stable. Russia has always been the go-to partner for North Korea, and before that, of course, the Soviet Union. But the fact is that the People's Republic of China and North Korea have very bad relations, some cooperation on a tactical basis, but there's no warmth there at all.
He said the U.S. has been gaining incredible power, not just militarily, but also psychologically.
What's critical is for the United States and for the Middle East and for Central Asia is that Iran stabilizes so that there can be direct access from the Central Asian states, to and from the Central Asian states, to the Persian Gulf and the Indian Ocean. That means that the Central Asian states are finally freed from having to send their trade in and out through either Russia or Communist China.
Copley noted India is critical of the idea of a new trade route as it's aligned with Russia, but all regional players are closely watching Iran's next step.
President Trump on Tuesday called on Iranians to keep protesting and taking over institutions in the country. Trump added that he canceled all meetings with Iranian officials and said help was on the way. It comes as the protesters' death toll soared over 2,000. Global implications following the U.S. operation in Venezuela. Reports say Chinese-made defense radars in the country failed during the operation. What does this say about China's military readiness, implications for Taiwan, and how the U.S. should perceive the CCP? Joining us to unpack all of this is former U.S. Department of Defense Senior Director for China, Taiwan, and Mongolia, Tony Hu. Tony Hu, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Now, the world is still watching after Operation Absolute Resolve in Venezuela and the capture of Maduro. There's more and more reporting that Chinese-made radars actually failed in Venezuela during that operation. First, what's your reaction to that?
Well, we know for a fact that the Venezuelan air defense was unable to counter U.S. strike. And the reason why they failed could be due to many factors. Of course, one of the reasons might be failure of those Chinese-made air defense radar and missiles. They did not perform as advertised. So we also don't know how well those systems were maintained. Did the Chinese just sold them the stuff and not teach them how to repair and maintain the radars? And could also be human factors where the training and proficiency of the operator. Did the Chinese teach them how to properly operate the system? So it could be an entire package problem where they sold the hardware and they didn't really give them the warfighting capability. Without the training and maintenance capability, those hardware is just nice to look at. And there also might be a breakdown between the radar and the missiles. They couldn't complete the kill process where the radar might have seen a target, but they couldn't pass the information to the shooter, the missile. So it could be caused by electronic warfare by the U.S. forces. We do that, and we always use that technique to protect our forces going in. So there could be many factors. Certainly, the Chinese hardware might be one of the primary factors that caused the Venezuelans to not able to defend against the U.S. forces.
Digging into the equipment specifically, though, it seems that China advertised the JY-278 anti-stealth radar systems as capable of spotting and stopping U.S. stealth aircraft, saying it was either on par or even more advanced than Western capabilities. At least in terms of this operation, it looks like that failed, and the world saw that. When it comes to the technology itself, what does this tell you about China's capabilities here?
Yeah, China's claimed that JY-27A was developed by China, but in fact, it is a copy of the Russian Nebo-M radar that was part of the S-400 missile system cell that the Russians sold to China. So it uses a VHF frequency. I don't want to get into the actual details. These frequencies do not have the accuracy of a high-band radar, so it might be able to detect a target far away, but you couldn't tell the actual distance and location. So it's not as capable as the Chinese claim it to be. And but that's expected because culturally, when China and Russia release their weapon performance data, it is usually much better than the actual performance. They just say, hey, we can do all this. The United States usually does the exactly opposite. When we release performance data of our weapon system, usually it's less than the actual performance. So, we keep the actual performance more classified, but tell people, oh, we can only do this for 150 miles, but actually the system might reach out to 200. Where the Chinese and the Russian tend to do the reverse. If the system can do 150 miles, they say, oh, we can do 250 miles. So obviously there could be some of that. And many of the users might be thinking, wow, I have this capability, but actually they don't.
And as you laid out there, a lot of countries use Chinese-made equipment, especially weapons, and given what we saw in Venezuela, could we see countries reconsidering that? Is there a fear of failure when it comes to Chinese-made weapons?
Yes, I think the recent activity is not a good promotion of a Chinese product, and some country will start probably having second thoughts and They might not go to the U.S. and they probably go more toward European and other third world countries like Brazil and South Africa. Those countries have a very strong defense industries, although Chinese products are always much cheaper. So it's attractive to these third world countries, and some countries through the Belt and Road Initiative, they will trade their minerals for military weapons, and Chinese accept that. So I think there's going to be some questions, and these countries might ask China to provide further proof of their product's performance rather than just accepting it. So, yeah, I don't. This is not good for the Chinese defense industry. However, it's not a death blow. They will still be purchased just because it's cheaper.
Well, Tony Hu, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, Tiffany. Have a good one.
Making Star Trek real. War Secretary Pete Hegseth is promising tech innovation at the Pentagon. He visited SpaceX headquarters in Texas on Monday and met with Elon Musk. Meanwhile, Hegseth was touting the president's proposal for $1.5 trillion military budget as a historic opportunity.
This is by far the most ever in our history, a historic and generational investment in American security. We will not squander this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to rebuild our military.
Hegseth also spoke at the Lockheed Martin facility in Fort Worth, where he told employees President Trump's proposed budget for 2027 is a message to the world. Trump's $1.5 trillion budget would represent a 66% increase from the current fiscal year. It would also bring the U.S. closer to NATO's spending goal of 5% of GDP on defense, something Trump has strongly supported. Trump proposed the new budget after the U.S. military captured former Venezuelan leader Nicolás Maduro.
How about this? Star Trek real. Star Trek original.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth traveled to SpaceX headquarters in Starbase, Texas on Monday as part of his Arsenal of Freedom tour. The secretary told SpaceX employees that the U.S. must win the strategic competition for 21st century technological supremacy.
Now, the question before us is not whether or not the most powerful technologies of this century will reinforce free societies. Is it going to reinforce our free societies, or will that technology be shaped and twisted by malign regimes that seek to use those technologies for control and coercion?
The War Secretary praised Musk for running an innovative and efficient company. He said the War Department will be cutting bureaucratic underbrush, the Elon Musk style, and opening up to U.S. tech startups.
Until this administration, the Trump administration, the department's process for fielding new capabilities had become just one more post-Cold War peace dividend relic that has not kept up with the times. Worse than that, we've done nothing but add layer upon layer of committees and councils that coordinated but never decided. We created endless projects with no accountable owners. We have high churn with little progress and few outputs.
Hegseth told SpaceX employees that the Trump administration has the backs of innovators. He said the administration is committed to arming U.S. warfighters with overwhelming and lethal technology right now.
We are done running a peacetime science fair while our potential adversaries are running a wartime arms race.
The War Secretary listed some of the new areas of global competition, including artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, quantum, hypersonics and long-range drones, space capabilities, directed energy, and biotechnology.
A visiting member of Canada's parliament acknowledged Chinese aggression toward Taiwan Tuesday ahead of Prime Minister Mark Carney's visit to China. The Canadian lawmaker pushed for diplomacy while in the Taiwanese capital, Taipei.
We reject the normalization of intimidation, of military coercion, of attempts to rewrite international norms through force. We believe that resilience, economic, institutional, and societal, is built through strong partnerships, also grounded in freedom, in democracy, in the rule of law, and in human rights.
Canada has no official diplomatic ties with Taiwan. However, the relationship between the two countries has deepened as China ramps up military threats against the democratic island. Two lawmakers from Carney's Liberal Party ended a visit to Taiwan early this week, citing advice from the Canadian government. Carney is expected to discuss trade and international security during his trip to China. Coming up, a former U.S. Navy sailor has been sentenced to nearly 17 years for spying for China. How it developed from seemingly harmless actions to selling thousands of sensitive documents about U.S. Navy ships. Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. A former U.S. Navy sailor has been sentenced to nearly 17 years for spying for China. He sold military secrets to a Chinese intelligence officer. This included reporting issues with naval ships at a base and revealing the locations of various naval vessels. Jing Chao Wei, also known as Patrick Wei, worked on the amphibious assault ship USS Essex at Naval Base San Diego as a mechanist's mate. The position gave him access to sensitive defense information, including data on U.S. Navy ships and their weapons. Prosecutors say he leaked photographs, ship movements, and weapons details. He was reportedly paid more than $12,000. A jury found him guilty last year on 6 counts, including espionage and unlawful export of defense data. Wei has been recruited by a Chinese officer in 2022 who portrayed himself as a naval enthusiast affiliated with China's state-run shipbuilding industry. It started with simple instructions and small amounts, such as walking the pier to see which ships are docked on a daily basis and being rewarded with $500 for that. It ended with him sharing thousands of documents, operating manuals, export-controlled and sensitive information with the Chinese officer. Wei is a naturalized U.S. citizen. The prosecutor said his mother had encouraged him to work for China, telling him it could help him land a job with Chinese authorities someday. China is tapping an expert on export controls and trade agreements to be its deputy trade representative. Jiang Chenhua is set to play an important role in upcoming U.S.-China trade talks. Meanwhile, President Trump has accepted an invitation to meet with Chinese leader Xi Jinping this April. Jiang is well-versed in international trade law. He worked on a U.S.-China investment deal that Trump put on hold back in 2017. Jiang also previously led China's Commerce Ministry's Export Controls Division. An analyst told Reuters that Jiang's promotion signals China could use export controls as a bargaining chip in future trade talks. That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For On the Clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.